This happened a few weeks ago. I was working the night shift at the hospital. I was 34 and had been doing this for years. It usually felt routine. But that night was different. I started my shift around 7 p.m. The hospital was quiet, just the hum of machines and faraway sounds of things I couldn't see. I pushed my cart down the long, sterile hallway, the lights flickered above me. It gave me a bad feeling. I thought maybe it was just my tired mind. As I finished my rounds around 6:50 p.m., I noticed something. Soft footsteps echoed behind me. I stopped and held my breath. It sounded too rhythmic to be just my imagination. I turned around, but the corridor was empty. My heart raced, but I shook my head and went back to work. Every hour, those footsteps returned. Sometimes they were close, sometimes far away. It gnawed at me. I felt cold drafts in some of the rooms. I checked windows and vents. Nothing was out of place. I wanted to ignore it but couldn't. Then I found the charts. Patient records were missing. I saw notes in strange handwriting that didn't make any sense. I showed my colleagues, but they dismissed me. "You're just worn out," they said. "The building plays tricks on you." I felt alone in my fear. That night, noises grew louder. I felt something was with me. I kept replaying moments in my mind. I heard a low whisper, barely there, making the hairs on my neck stand up. It wasn't just exhaustion anymore. My heart raced with every sound. I wanted to see what was happening. I moved cautiously, peeking into rooms. I caught flashes of movement out of the corner of my eye. Shadows darted past. I shook my head, trying to convince myself it was all in my mind. Then I got to room 407. I felt pulled toward it. It was just a door, but something felt wrong. I knocked, but only my knock echoed back at me. I was about to turn away when I heard it. "Help me." I froze. It was faint, almost too quiet to hear. My stomach twisted as dread washed over me. I looked into the room, but saw nothing. Then I saw her. A figure at the end of the hall, standing still. She was dark against the flickering light. I blinked, and she vanished. I felt a wave of cold wash over me. I wanted to run, but my feet wouldn't move. I took a step closer, my heart pounding in my chest. I needed to know who she was. Something told me to turn around, but I couldn't. The words helped me echoed in my mind. I took another step, into the unknown. Now, I still wonder who was watching me from the shadows that night. What were they trying to show me? The hospital feels different now and I can never shake that feeling of dread. I didn't sleep that night. My mind raced with confusion and fear. The whispers, they lingered. As the clock ticked past midnight, I decided I had to find answers. I could feel the weight of the hospital pressing down on me, colder than any winter. When my shift finally ended, I left only to return within hours. The sunlight offered a false sense of safety. The warmth outside faded as I entered the hospital again, everything felt wrong. I needed to look into room 407. I needed to confront whatever haunted me. As I reached the door, a shiver coursed through me. I could still hear her voice, "Help me." What was she trying to tell me? I pushed the door open slowly, heart pounding, breath caught in my throat. The room was empty. The stark bed linens were untouched. I scanned the walls for any clue, any answer. Then I saw a small notepad on the bedside table. My hands trembled as I picked it up. The pages were filled with scrawled notes, some names I recognized, others I didn't. I turned to the last page. There, hauntingly, was a name I hadn't heard in years. Sarah Jenkins. A patient who had gone missing during my first year at the hospital. I remembered the search and the heartbreak her family endured. No one ever found her. Then a sound pulled me from my thoughts. I whipped around footsteps again. This time, they were louder, more confident. They echoed in the hallway, reverberating against the stark white walls. I felt them call me. Panic set in, but curiosity pushed me forward. I slipped back into the corridor, stepping lightly. The footsteps seemed to have direction, moving toward the nurse's station. I followed, heart racing. The whispers grew louder. "Help me." It felt like they were pulling me closer. I reached the station and stopped, scanning the area. It was empty. Just machines, papers, and the dull glow of fluorescent lights. But then I noticed something, a folder at the edge of the counter. It was open, and my breath hitched when I saw the name on top, Sarah Jenkins. I flipped through the pages frantically. The report detailed her disappearance, notes on psychiatric evaluations. As I read, a cold breeze brushed past me, and I shivered again. Suddenly, the lights flickered more violently. I looked back toward room 407. In that moment, I saw her again. The dark figure at the end of the hall, staring directly at me. Her eyes were wide, pleading. "Help me." She screamed, but her lips didn't move. Everything felt frozen, caught in the tension of uncertainty. I needed to make a choice. Was I going to turn back, or face whatever she wanted? Then the lights went out completely. Darkness engulfed me. I could hear whispers from everywhere. Desperation surged through my veins. Someone's here, I thought. But who? Before I could react, a hand grasped my arm, hot and freezing at the same time. I gasped, my heart racing. I looked down, but I couldn't see anything. The grasp was tight, almost suffocating. I was no longer alone. Then everything went silent. The whispers disappeared. I blinked into the darkness, struggling to catch my breath. What just happened? The grip on my arm had vanished, leaving me feeling more alone than ever. I reached out, desperate for something solid. My fingers brushed against the cold, sterile wall. I took a step forward. My heart thudded loudly in my chest, but the whispering had gone, replaced by a heavy silence that felt almost suffocating. I fumbled for the light switch, feeling along the wall until my fingers found the switch. I flipped it, but nothing happened. The power was out. Panic began to creep in again. I needed to find help, or at least someone else. I summoned my courage and moved carefully down the corridor. Each step echoed. I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, the sensation creeping back in like the shadows around me. The air felt different. It was thicker, charged. And then I heard it, a soft, rhythmic tapping sound. It started faintly and grew louder. It came from the direction of the stairwell. My instinct told me to turn and run, but I was drawn to it. Curiosity pushed me forward despite my unease. I reached the staircase and paused. The tapping was clearer now, almost rhythmic, like someone was tapping their fingers against the railing. I leaned closer, trying to make sense of it. Then I heard a voice, low and muffled, mixing with the tapping. "Help me," my breath caught. It was her voice again, only now it was layered with something darker, more desperate. I didn't want to go down those stairs, but I felt an invisible pull, urging me to continue. I carefully descended, counting the steps in the dark, trying to block out the fear. As I reached the landing, the tapping stopped. An overwhelming silence replaced it, making my ears ring. Then, just as suddenly, the lights flickered back on. I squinted against the harsh brightness, feeling the adrenaline spike within me. That's when I saw it. At the far end of the hallway, a figure stood, watching. There was no mistaking it, the outline was unmistakable. Sarah Jenkins. I could see her now, clearer than before, although something about her seemed off, like she was partially submerged in the shadows. "Help me," she whispered, her voice chilling. I wanted to turn and run, but I was frozen, rooted to the spot. She moved slightly, just enough for the light to catch her face. Her skin was pale and eyes hollow, filled with an anguish that made me shudder. I took a tentative step back, and as I did, the lights flickered again, this time dimming to near darkness. "Stay!" she called, her voice sharp and desperate. My pulse raced. I needed to understand. Why was she trapped here? My mind flashed back to the notepad, her name scrawled in my memory. I focused, and before I could make another choice, the flickering stopped, plunging me back into darkness. "Help me!" The voice was now surrounding me again. Then, in the pitch black, I realized something. I wasn't the only one in the hallway. There were more voices joining her, faint, overlapping, calling out for help. A cold realization washed over me, there might be more than one lost soul here. I couldn't stay. I turned, stumbling back the way I came, but before I reached the stairs, a hand gripped my shoulder. I spun around, heart pounding. "Who's there?" I shouted, but only silence replied. Then I heard it, the unmistakable sound of footsteps closing in around me. I didn't hesitate. I bolted down the corridor, my mind screaming at me to escape. The footsteps followed, echoing mine, a relentless drumbeat of dread. Each step felt heavier than the last, and panic surged through me. I needed to find somewhere safe. I glanced over my shoulder, but only darkness met my eyes. Whatever was close was shrouded in it, creeping ever closer. I focused ahead. There was a door on my left, an emergency exit. I lunged for it, yanking the handle down with all my strength. It swung open, and I stumbled into the stairwell. The overhead lights flickered weakly, casting long shadows that danced along the walls. I took a deep breath and dashed down the steps, heart racing. Each footfall echoed louder, drowning out the silence I sought. I reached the next level and paused, catching my breath. I peered back up the stairs, expecting to see something, anything, but there was still nothing but shadow. I could hear my silence, my breaths, but there was an unsettling absence of the footsteps. I had lost them for now. I looked around, trying to orient myself. This level was dimly lit, but I noticed more doors lining the halls, all painted the same sterile white. They all looked the same. I hesitated, unsure of which way to go. The whispers were gone, but I could still feel their weight, a reminder that I wasn't alone here. I spotted a door marked storage and approached cautiously. It felt wrong somehow. Storage rooms were often filled with old equipment, dolls of memories long discarded. Still, it was a door, and it was something. I pulled it open, wincing at the creaking sound it made. Inside, the room was cramped and filled with boxes piled high. Dust coated everything like a thin blanket, making me sneeze. I started rifling through the boxes, hoping to find something that could help me make sense of this nightmare. Old medical supplies, broken chairs, and a few outdated charts littered the surfaces. Then, an object caught my eye, a small silver key, glinting in the dim light. I picked it up, feeling its cool weight in my palm. It was intriguing. Where could it lead? My instincts told me it was important. Just then, I heard it again, the tapping sound. My heart dropped. It was different now, sharper, more urgent. I peered out of the storage room, the hallway stretching into darkness. The tapping was coming closer. I felt time slipping. I couldn't stay here. Clutching the key tightly, I stepped back into the corridor, scanning for the source of the sound. I had to find the exit, or at the very least, a place to hide. As the tapping drew nearer, I turned down the hallway and almost collided with another figure, a man, tall and disheveled, standing just a few feet away. His expression was one of confusion. "Who are you?" I stammered, holding the key defensively in front of me. He opened his mouth to speak, but before he could utter a word, the lights flickered violently and went out again, plunging us into darkness. "Run!" he shouted, his voice cutting through the silence. And just like that, I was on the move again, caught in a dance of fear as I tried to escape whatever was lurking in the shadows. The darkness engulfed me, smothering any sense of direction. I felt the man beside me, his presence a momentary shield against the creeping fear. "Do you know where to go?" I asked, my voice trembling. He shook his head. "Just keep moving." We took off again, sprinting down the hallway. The echo of our footsteps mixed with the tapping sound that pursued us. I could hear it behind me, relentless, like someone counting down to something dire. I aimed for the nearest door, one that looked slightly ajar. I pushed it open, nearly falling inside. The space was small, a utility closet filled with cleaning supplies and a flickering light above. "Get in," I urged, pulling the door closed just as I heard the sound of footfalls approaching. We pressed ourselves into the shadows, holding our breath. The tapping grew louder, punctuated by a soft shuffling. I exchanged a look with the man. He was sweating, his eyes wide with panic. In that moment, I was aware that we were both prisoners of our own fear. The sounds outside continued, then suddenly stopped. It was too quiet. After a moment that felt like an eternity, he whispered, "Do you think it's gone?" I shook my head. The silence felt wrong, like a pause before a storm. I wanted to bolt, grab the nearest exit and run until I was far away from this place. But something held me back. "We can't just sit here." He nodded, then turned to scan the closet. "Maybe there is something we can use." His words snapped me back into action. I rummaged through the closet, shoving aside buckets and mops, until my fingers brushed against something cold and metallic. A flashlight. I yanked it out and clicked it on weak at first, but enough to illuminate our cramped hiding spot. "Good find," he said with a tight smile, but that glimmer of hope quickly vanished. The quiet was shattered by a sudden bang against the door, causing us to jump. "Go! Go!" I shouted, bursting from the closet and pushing past him. The hallway stretched ahead, dark and foreboding. With the flashlight, I felt slightly braver, but I knew I needed to keep moving. "What now?" he asked, glancing back as another loud thud echoed through the corridor. "There." I pointed toward the end of the corridor where a door stood slightly ajar, beckoning us with a sliver of light. It was our only chance. We sprinted toward it, ignoring the creeping dread in my gut. But as I reached for the handle, I remembered the key. My heart raced again as I fished it from my pocket, a sudden realization sparking in my mind. This might fit. I turned the key in the lock. It slid in effortlessly. Was this the way out? I glanced back at him, but he was staring past me, his face paling. "Something's coming," he said, voice barely a whisper. Before I could react, the door burst open, and we were face to face with a shadowy figure. Someone was here. Someone who had been waiting. I could feel the cold fear settle in my bones as the figure stepped into the dim light, and everything I thought I knew shattered around me. The figure stepped closer, and my breath caught. Its features were obscured by the shadows, but I could feel its gaze boring into us. My instincts screamed to run, but my feet felt glued to the ground. "Who are you?" I managed to say, my voice barely above a whisper. It didn't answer. Instead, it tilted its head, studying us like we were some kind of specimen. The air felt thick, charged with tension. I glanced at my companion, hoping for reassurance, but his eyes were wide with fear, mirroring my own. "Back away!" I shouted, trying to sound more confident than I felt. But the figure didn't move, its presence almost mocking. Then, slowly, it raised a hand, fingers elongated and unnaturally pale. Before I could think, I darted past it, shoving my friend forward. "Move!" I yelled. We bolted down the corridor again. I dared a glance back, and the figure stood still, as if enjoying our terror. The tapping sound echoed behind us once more, but this time it was louder, more insistent, like an alarm clock reminding us that time was slipping away. "Where do we go?" my friend shouted, panic seeping into his voice. Any door. We need a place to hide, I replied, eyes racing along the walls until I spotted another door at the end. It was closed, but I didn't care. I turned the handle and shoved it open. Inside was a patient room. The curtains were drawn, shadows lurking in every corner. I stepped in, urging my friend. We can't stay out there. As soon as we were in, I closed the door, locking it behind us. It was a feeble barrier, but it calmed my urgent heartbeat for a moment. What now? He asked, breathless. I scanned the room, searching for anything useful. The space felt suffocating. The bed lay empty, the sheets rumpled and stained. In the corner, a metal tray contained assorted tools, some used, some not. That could work, I said, pointing. I grabbed a scalpel, feeling the weight of it in my hand. If it comes in, I trailed off, uncertain. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from the hallway. We both jumped, adrenaline spiking again. My heart raced faster than I could follow. The figure had found us. A quick glance at the window revealed bars. No escape that way. So what is the plan? He asked, panic flickering in his voice. Wait for it to get in, then we surprise it, I said, trying to sound braver than I felt. But deep down, dread settled in. What if it wasn't just one figure? What if there were more? The door rattled as something slammed against it. My grip tightened on the scalpel. Get ready, I said through clenched teeth. As the door buckled under the weight of whatever was outside, I noticed a small poster on the wall. It was a guide about security protocols for the hospital, stay alert. I scoffed at the irony and wished I had paid more attention to it earlier. Then everything changed. There was a sudden silence, followed by a low growl. This wasn't just any ordinary threat. That realization sank inside me as I prepared for what would come next. But before I could react, the door burst open, and the dark figure filled the doorway with a menacing presence. I never saw what came next. I felt the scalpel slip from my fingers. My heart pounded in my chest as the figure lunged forward. In that moment, everything felt like it was moving in slow motion. My instincts kicked in, and I ducked to the side, narrowly avoiding whatever caught me off guard. The figure was taller than I had expected, looming over me with a twisting, unnatural grace. Shadows danced around it, as if even the light feared to get too close. I stumbled back, trying to get my bearings, but my mind raced. What was this thing? My friend screamed. I turned just in time to see him dart to the corner of the room, desperately searching for something to defend himself with. The fear in his eyes mirrored my own. Don't just stand there. I yelled, as I backed away, trying to give him space. Grab something. He lunged for a metal tray, but the figure was faster. In one quick motion, it reached out, wrapping its elongated fingers around his wrist. I was frozen, paralyzed by the horror of the scene unfolding before me. Let him go. I shouted, the words erupting from a place deep within me. The figure turned its head slowly, fixing its gaze on me, and I felt a cold chill sweep through the room. Thoughts raced through my mind. It didn't just want to scare us, it was here for something else. With a surge of adrenaline, I sprinted forward, snatching the scalpel from the floor. I didn't know if it would help, but I had to try. Get away from him. I shouted again. Time seemed to slow as I lunged toward the figure, raising the scalpel in defiance. The figure released my friend suddenly, twisting away slightly, almost amused by my attempt. Run! I urged him, grabbing his shoulder and pushing him toward the door. He hesitated, still breathing heavily, but the figure was now shifting its focus back to me. Now! I screamed. We bolted from the room, leaving that terrifying presence behind. We dashed down the corridor, the sound of our footsteps echoing in the stillness. With every step, I could feel its gaze on our backs, like a predator assessing its prey. We need to find a way out, my friend gasped as we turned a corner. There has to be an emergency exit or something. I didn't respond, too busy scanning the walls for signs. Panic surged through me again. The hospital felt like a labyrinth designed to trap us. Then I caught a glimpse of a sign hanging above a door at the end of the corridor, emergency exit. Relief and fear battled inside me as we raced for it. Just as we reached the door, I heard a sound that made my blood run cold, a low, guttural growl resonating from behind us. "It's coming!" I yelled. "Hurry!" I pulled the emergency door open, stumbling into a dark stairwell. We both plunged inside, slamming the door behind us. But there was no time to celebrate our small victory. The growling intensified, shaking the walls, and I could feel the floor vibrate beneath my feet. Whatever that thing was, it wasn't going to let us escape so easily. "Where do we go now?" my friend whispered, the tremor in his voice unmistakable. I looked down the stairs, the endless darkness below feeling alive. "We go down. Maybe there's a way out." With that, we moved cautiously into the shadows, every creak of the stairs amplifying the fear creeping up my spine. It felt like we were being swallowed whole. And then I remembered the growl, echoing ominously from above. Someone or something was in pursuit. The stairs seemed endless. I focused on my breathing, forcing myself to stay calm. Each step creaked beneath our weight, a reminder that we weren't alone in this empty hospital. The darkness wrapped around us like a thick blanket, exacerbating the unease clenching my stomach. I couldn't shake the feeling that it was only a matter of time before we were found again. "Do you think it followed us?" my friend whispered, his voice barely a breath against the silence. I shook my head, not because I was sure, but because I wanted to believe we'd lost it. "I don't know. Just keep moving." We kept going down. My mind raced, trying to map out what had just happened. Who was that figure? What did it want? The memory of its cold, piercing gaze sent shivers down my spine. Suddenly, I spotted a faint light flickering at the bottom of the staircase. I felt a flicker of hope, my heart quickening. "There. Look. A way out. Let us hurry," he urged, his voice shaking with urgency. Halfway down, I turned back for one last look at the dark staircase behind us. What if it was still up there, moving down? The thought made me shudder. I felt a surge of panic, but I forced myself to take a deep breath and press on. Reaching the last step, we entered a small room illuminated by flickering fluorescent lights. The air hung heavy with the smell of damp concrete and something metallic I didn't want to identify. The walls were bare, the only furniture a couple of old chairs and a large, locked door. "Is this it?" my friend asked, glancing around. "There's gotta be a way through here," I said, moving toward the locked door. I felt the cold metal handle, but it wouldn't budge. It wouldn't open. My friend joined me, shaking it. The door rattled, but it stayed closed. My heart sank. "We can't stay here. We have to find another way out." Before we could do more than glance at each other, the growling sound pierced the air again, louder and more menacing. I pressed my back against the door. The sound reverberated through the small room, a primal growl that spoke of hunger and rage. "It's close," my friend gasped. I scanned the room, my mind racing for options. My eyes fell on a window above us, too high to reach without climbing. "We can try the window. Help me." He nodded, and together we positioned the chairs under the window. Climbing on top, I could see only darkness beyond, but at least it was a chance. "Nothing else works," I muttered, forcing myself to forget the noise outside. "On 3. Okay," he replied, his voice steadying slightly. 1, 2, 3. We launched ourselves up, reaching for the window ledge. I felt something brush against my leg as I pulled myself up. I looked down, heart pounding. A shadow flickered at the door. That noise my friend started but never finished. He was looking at something behind me, his face pale. Just then, everything went dark. I lost my balance and fell backward, crashing into the chairs below me. The growl erupted, echoing in my ears, signaling that the creature was no longer just a distant memory. "Get up. We have to move," I shouted, scrambling. But panic clawed at my throat. As I turned to face the locked door again, I knew we were running out of time, and whatever was coming wasn't just a figment of our terror. "Go!" I screamed, pushing my friend toward the only way out, unsure of where the shadows would lead us next. We surged toward the door, my heart racing. I could hear my friend's heavy breathing behind me, matching the quickened tempo of my pulse. The growl grew louder, echoing off the walls, growing more menacing by the second. "Where do we go?" my friend asked, panic threading his voice. "Anywhere but here," I shouted, swinging open the door, praying it would give way. To my surprise, it creaked open just enough for us to slip through. I didn't look back. We burst into the hall, where faint emergency lights flickered, barely illuminating the path ahead. As we fled, the growls morphed into a chorus of whispers, muffled but sinister. I pressed my palms against my ears, trying to drown them out, desperate for clarity in the chaos. "We need to find a way out of this place," I pleaded, although my mind was racing with possibilities. We turned a corner, skidding to a halt in front of a large patient room. The door was ajar, swinging slightly. Inside, shadows danced across the walls, and the smell of decay clawed at my throat. It felt wrong. "Let us not go in there," my friend said, his eyes wide with apprehension. I nodded, but the whispers seemed to call us closer. "Maybe there is something we can use," I murmured, pushing the door open wider. The room was cold, everything covered in dust. My breath fogged in the air as I surveyed the contents: an empty bed, a bedside table, and finally a metal tray. My heart leaped. It was the only thing in immediate reach. I grabbed it, feeling its weight in my hands. "Let us just go," my friend urged, glancing nervously at the shadows. Before I could respond, the growl erupted again, deeper this time, rattling the room. It felt like the voice of the darkness itself. "Now!" I yelled, rushing back into the hallway, my friend close behind. We sprinted down the corridor, past rooms marked with faded numbers. The whispers turned to cries, disembodied voices swirling around us in a deafening cacophony. I couldn't tell if they begged for help or cursed us for being there. It didn't matter. Just as we approached another set of double doors, the lights above began to flicker wildly. "Please, no," I muttered. Crashing footsteps echoed down the hall, quickening our steps. Panic surged through me, triggering a primal flight response. I slammed against the door, pushing it open and spilling into the next room, pulling my friend in behind me. Inside, we found ourselves in what appeared to be a storage area, shelves lined with medical supplies. But what caught my eye were the hazy, shadowy forms shifting near the back wall. I squinted, trying to focus, my stomach nodding. "Is that?" my friend whispered, backing away. It was hard to tell through the dim light, but the forms looked like people, patients, or something else entirely. Then one of them turned, eyes glinting in the darkness. "Help us," it rasped, voice disjointed and strangled. That single plea felt like ice running through my veins. The whispers intensified, boiling around us, drowning out reason. I stumbled back, clutching the metal tray as if it could protect me from whatever horror lay before us. "What do we do?" my friend asked, eyes wide with fear. "Run!" I shouted, erupting back through the door. But just as we turned to flee, I heard it again, a growl, closer now and filled with rage. It may have been the echoes of the past, or something much more dangerous. Either way, we were no longer alone, and our enemy was drawing nearer. We dashed deeper into the hospital's twisting maze, heartbeats racing in time with the mounting dread that suffocated the air. The growl echoed through the halls, an animalistic sound that sent electric shocks of fear through my veins. In a desperate act, I grabbed my friend's arm tighter, urging him to move faster. We burst into another corridor, each patch of flickering light illuminating our frantic breaths. "Where do we go?" he panted, glancing over his shoulder. The growls morphed into whispers, curling around us like fog, and I knew we only had moments before whatever hunted us caught up. "Just keep running," I shouted, the echoes of my voice mixed with the whispers that clawed at my sanity. We turned down another alley, slid past a set of doors, and came to a sickening halt in front of a waiting room. I glanced explosively around. "Search for something," I urged, throwing my hands against my hair in frustration. My eyes darted from the chairs, the coffee table, and the bulletin board, illuminated by harsh light. My friend grabbed an old fire extinguisher near the exit. "This could help." He held it up, his eyes gleaming with panic. "Good thinking. We might need it," I responded, reorienting myself. As we decided what to do next, another round of growls vibrated through the walls, and the whispers grew more fervent. "They're close," I stated, a catch in my throat. The primal instinct to flee intensified as I turned toward another door leading deeper into the hospital's unknown. "Wait. If we stick together," he started, but I shook my head. "The more we linger, the more dangerous it gets. We have to split up. I'll find a way out, and you help keep everything at bay." "No. I can't do this alone," he cried out in desperation, but I felt the weight of the dark pushing me to act. "Please. Trust me." The noise outside swelled with agitation, pulsing like an advancing predator. "We'll meet up at the ER. Just count to 30 and then sprint towards the closest exit." "Okay," he stuttered, apprehensively nodding. "Go." I dashed through the door, the cold metal of the fire extinguisher heavy in my grasp like a shield. I felt sick at abandoning him to face the unknown, but instinct prevailed. The air thickened with suffocating unease, squeezing the very breath from my lungs. I slipped into another corridor, my heart pounding louder than the whispers beckoning me. Faces from the past flickered in and out of my mind, patients ID cared for, the missing who haunted the pages of reports. "Please help," they echoed, filling my head with a mixture of guilt and fear. I entered a small waiting area. The room stank of something foul, remnants of old wounds and unending sorrow. I glanced around wildly, spotting a window overlooking the back alley, the closest thing to freedom. Alarm bells rang in my mind. "It won't be easy," I thought grimly as I turned to the window. Darkness settled around me like the weight of despair as I approached it. "Just get out," I urged myself silently, summoning every ounce of courage. I pushed against the glass, but the frame wouldn't budge. Panic surged. Shadows flickered behind me as whispers turned to screams, all of them crying out for help, demanding acknowledgement. Heart thudding, I turned just in time to see the figure again, its silhouette darker than the void around us. "Help me," it murmured, voice thick with the torment of the lost. I felt paralyzed. The figure stepped forward, dark limbs stretching and twisting unnaturally, a grasping specter that beckoned with a weapon of forlorn hope. "I'm not here to save you," I stammered, and fled toward another hallway, tearing open a door labeled therapy room. Inside, another patient lay twisted and unaware, a remnant of what once was, shreds of sheets, careworn instruments, the smell of antiseptic mingling with something more rotten. Suddenly, the growls behind me intensified. I couldn't stop. I threw open another door directly across from me, revealing a stairwell. I dashed down, praying I was making the right choice. Each step echoed like a drum. My mind raced with thoughts of my friend. What if he didn't make it? As I descended further, the growls turned to an angry howl, enveloping my very sense of reality. One last push, I thought desperately. I turned to make sure I wasn't being followed. Nothing there. I reached the emergency exit, finding it deceptively simple. Pushing it open, I stumbled outside into the cold night air. I gasped, heart pounding with relief and a sliver of dread. How was I outside? The vision of my friend lingered in the back of my mind. Where is he? I whispered, scanning the empty parking lot. I pushed back the feeling of abandonment over fear. A sound broke through the eerie silence. The front door of the hospital slammed open. I froze, waiting. I was no longer sure if I was free or just standing at the beginning of a different horror. Footsteps echoed, and I squinted to see a figure emerge, a dark shape standing against the hospital lights. Help! It sounded just like the whispers. I staggered back, the chill creeping through me. It felt like the start of something I hadn't escaped at all. The hospital loomed over me, a beast holding its breath, waiting for the next chance to claim another soul. I could feel the darkness pressed against my back, a reminder that whatever lingered inside was far from finished. I might have escaped, but I knew my struggle was just beginning. I still wonder now, did my friend make it out, or did he become another echo in the hospital's grasp?